So welcome to Scissors and Scrubs. I'm Nicole.
I'm Laura.
And this week we're doing something a little different. You know how well we interview people. So we're gonna throw another interview at you. And we're gonna interview Chuck Jankowski. He found a need for new nurses and he started a program. So we're gonna talk with him today. We're gonna talk about who he is, what he does, the program, where he sees the gaps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Chuck, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Chuck Jankowski. I've been a nurse for 14 years. My background is in critical care, trauma. I've done some ED nursing as well as some community health and home-based nursing. And I also worked for the federal government as a nurse specialist in the National Disaster Medical System.
All right, so let's go back to the beginning. Where are you from, Chuck?
I'm from New York.
Oh,
Yeah.
the enemy. So you were a firefighter?
Yes, I was a New York City firefighter prior to and early in my nursing career. I went back to school while I was still on the job, and that's how I actually got into community health nursing. Was that I worked for a visiting nurse service in New York, and because I was kind of used to everywhere in the city, I was able to pretty much go anywhere for them. I filled in for nurses when they were sick, when they had overtime patient load, picked up vacations, and just being comfortable in all the neighborhoods. I ran all over the place. It didn't matter whether it was in uptown, downtown, midtown, crosstown.
I would think visiting nursing in New York is difficult.
Very, very, very interesting, and in the role that I was in picking up, for other nurses, I didn't have my own assignments. I was picking up other nurses' assignments. I would be one day in a single room occupancy in Chinatown and the next day in a penthouse on Fifth Avenue.
Oh, yeah.
Really saw
You saw a lot.
Yeah, the total breadth of the experience of people in New York City.
So what made you decide to go into nursing versus firefighting?
Well, I actually, in the New York City Fire Department, there is almost a tradition of nursing. Back in the 70s, the city needed nurses very badly, and they started a program with the fire department where they paid for firefighters to go to school at Hunter Bellevue. They had a very flexible scheduling where if you were in this program, you could arrange your scheduling around the classes, and the payback was that the firefighters would work part-time in the Health and Hospital Corporation hospitals in the city. And that program has since ended, but there still is somewhat of an affinity in the fire department towards going back to school for nursing, where you can apply with the chief of personnel, let them know your schedule of nursing classes, and they allow you to alter your work schedule so that you can attend class.
How'd you find the transition?
It was interesting and different. I had this conversation working in a trauma ICU with another nurse who was previously he's a veteran of Iraq, and there's a real slashing outfit over there. And he goes, isn't it great going to work and knowing that you're going to come out at the end of the day okay? I said, yeah, that is quite a relief. And then a pandemic happened.
Yeah, exactly. And we never knew if any of us were coming out.
Right. So so I went from that feeling of relief to living in the basement for 3 months.
Yeah. Okay, so you go to nursing school. What'd you think of it? What'd you find difficult in nursing school?
It is the difficult part of nursing school was figuring out a repeatable process that they were looking for. There was a lot, in nursing school, there's a lot of select all that apply, a lot of gray area kind of questions, a lot of gray area kind of instruction. So it was figuring out what they were looking for. And then once I was able to get that process down, applying that process to all the material, and it became much easier. It was not as much running around in circles and spinning my wheels.
I mean, I went to nursing school a little older as well. I was an EMT first, and then I was a surgical tech, and then I was like 26. And it was just, I think, a little older, it's a little easier because you can figure out that process a little quicker.
Yes, and I had a completely different mindset going back to school as an adult, paying for it out of pocket. The first time I attempted college, if there was a note on the door saying class is canceled today, I thought it was awesome. As an adult, I was like, wait a minute, when do I get my money's worth?
I slipped in the library the first year and failed out. So, I found it very different going back older. So you graduated in 2009?
Yes.
All right. What was your first nursing job?
First nursing job was working in visiting nurse service up in New York.
Okay. Did you find it challenging as a new grad?
I did. My first patient,
Hmm.
I went there and he had fallen. And the process was that if we couldn't get a hold of their physician to clear them, that we had, to call for an ambulance. And what they wanted to do with the ambulance was their choice. But his wife and he were so upset that I was calling the ambulance that they chased me out of their house. So then I was sitting in the hallway of this apartment building, calling my boss, going like, "What do I do now?" And then they ran out of the house.
Oh.
And then there were some other weird things going on too. Like the guy was not well. There were things that looked off. But as a new grad, I didn't quite know, couldn't put my finger on it. What I put my finger on was something was just off.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I finished do my paperwork in the hallway to document the whole thing, and I walk out there, and there he is getting loaded into the ambulance that had come for him. So I was like, I don't even know. Like, I'm getting fired. I have no idea what's going on. Like,
this
is going to turn into like I chased this old man out of his house, and he fell in the street and broke his hip. And they brought him to end of the story. I hear back from my boss. Turns out he was admitted to the ED with septic pneumonia.
Oh.
He was actually very ill. But the downside was that I left my stethoscope in their apartment, and I didn't have the guts to try and go get it back.
I wouldn't have gone back either. So did you have any orientation for this?
Or yes, there was a thorough orientation.
Did you? So you felt it was enough to prepare you for what you were going into?
I don't think anything in nursing is enough to prepare you for what you're getting into, but it gave me a good idea of how to structure a visit, how to admit a patient, how to do an assessment on a patient in the home care setting, how to interact with people in the home care setting in like the vast variance that you see in culture wise in a big city like New York or Boston. Yeah. So no, they did a great job. It was a great place to work. I had very supportive staff that I worked with.
So you went from there to hospital?
So yes, I ended up retiring from the fire department, and my wife and I moved, and I went into hospital work full time.
Did you like it better, worse, different, same?
Different. I was very lucky in the first unit that I went to was a trauma ICU, and I pretty much had consigned myself to the idea that, like, well, I'm never going to get along with anybody or have as good a time or become friends with anybody like I did in the firehouse. So, everything's just downhill from here. And
okay, there you go.
I set the bar low.
Yeah, real low.
But I was really lucky. I got into this fantastic trauma ICU, great team, great mentorship environment. I had a great preceptor who really helped me to develop my nursing knowledge, take all of the pre-hospital stuff that I knew from the fire department, take all the experience I had working for the visiting nurse service, take my nursing knowledge from going to nursing school, and really bring it together into the ICU setting.
Oh, nice. So now you do this. What made you, like, where were you seeing gaps that made you want to decide to do this program?
So it's actually
tell us about the program.
It's a nexus of experiences that came to this conclusion. In my work during the pandemic, I went around to hospitals setting up crisis ICUs for providing federal relief for institutions that were either overwhelmed by patient load or were having staffing crises. And in some of those settings, I saw places where new grad nurses who had just come out of school with clinicals that were done virtually, classes that were done virtually, were thrown into these crazy situations. And it was all, the stuff that you saw on TV with people in tents outside of hospitals, ICUs being set up in ad hoc in other patient care locations, not fixed ICUs. So we saw new grad nurses who were thrown into those scenarios. So nurses who maybe worked in less acute settings, outpatient settings, who in lieu of being furloughed came back to the bedside, nurses who maybe were working in different departments, non-clinical departments, who were returned to the bedside for the crises. Saw them in there. I saw people in over their heads, and nobody there to throw them a lifeline.
Yeah.
A lot of places we were showing up, and this is a crash course in critical care nursing.
And it took me, like, even recently we were talking, we train nurses as well in the OR, and I was like, they're just not getting it. She's like, you have to remember, they went to school during COVID. They didn't have clinicals like we did. They were doing virtual. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I totally forgot about that.
And even in a perfect environment, your clinical experiences in nursing school are limited. They're limited to,
Yeah,
one, maybe 2 8-hour days per week. Of those 8 hours, you've got a lot of it is if the nurse that you're working with is allowing you to take part in these, if there
exactly.
are the kind of acuity level of experiences that you would like to get or you need to get happen to
Mhm.
be there. So even that it is tough. I think looking back at the way nursing school used to be in the days of yore with the hospital-based programs where you were
They were
working in a
running the
hospital.
hospitals back then.
Right. That was a much different experience people had because they were so much more exposed than they were from when we switched over to an academic setting.
Right, right.
Um, so yeah, I saw a lot of places where, maybe travel nurses who were not as ready for the environments that they were thrown into, and nobody was there to throw anybody a lifeline. When that slowed down and I returned to the hospital system I worked for, I was lucky enough to get exposed to a program and I work for a very forward-thinking institution in this regard. They have a clinical mentor program where experienced nurses round every shift on new grad nurses. So from when they're off of their preceptorship until they're completed with their first year, and it's just to give them a strong support base, to be that kind of extra layer of Swiss cheese when they have questions, to be a
Yeah.
resource for them to help adapt to the hospital environment. Because there's not, in addition to nurses coming out, having had virtual clinical experiences, there's not senior nurses there anymore.
Right.
True. We're losing them
There,
at a rapid rate.
there's an exodus from the bedside for a multitude of reasons. So now you've got a nurse who's been on the floor for 6 months who's precepting, or a nurse who's been on the floor for 9 months who is the charge nurse, and that's a tough position to be in, to be teaching
Yeah.
and leading while you are still
It's
learning
scary.
your own trade.
Right, right.
Um,
It's scary.
and coming from the fire department, we had I would say almost an extreme culture of mentorship where the senior firefighters, it was an expectation that whoever was the senior firefighters would be involved in the professional development of the younger firefighters, the junior members, whether that was through, a formal drilling that we were doing, whether that was through just discussion of, kind of, I think cultural knowledge would be the right way to say it, of saying, this building, we had a fire there 6 years ago, and these were the challenges, or, this is the type of building in our area, this is how we do it, and this is why we do it, or saying, come, let's take these tools out, clean them, and go over how to use them.
Mhm.
And for people who are not, not everybody's cut out to be a teacher in that role, just role modeling and being the example of what a new person, a novice nurse, novice firefighter should be doing is an important thing to see. And that's, that a lot of that is what's missing.
Yeah. I mean, I
I
think we're just so understaffed. They don't have time. They just don't have the
if
time.
yes, and if you do have those senior nurses, then it is, that they're running ragged too. It's
Right.
it's very difficult. When I started doing the professional development role, I really thought that I was going to be going out and going over, hard clinical skills with people. Okay, this is how you get that tough IV. This is how you manage these drips. This is, how you deal with chest tubes and trachs and things. And what I really found was that what the nurses were coming out of school clinically strong, but it was the soft skills of nursing that we're missing. The concept of how do you transition from a clinical experience where you're helping a nurse who's managing patients on their own, or maybe managing one or two patients kind of on your own with somebody's watchful eye over you. How do you transition to that, to managing 3, 4, 5 patients, even more in some different settings? How do you transition into being able to manage that? Time management, organization, prioritization, dealing with the different priority conflicts that arise of people trying to reach out to you. How do you communicate effectively to physicians, mid-levels, other nurses? How do you delegate? These are all things. These are where I saw new nurses needing support, and they're legitimate questions that people have. If I was a young early 20s new graduate coming out and asking a patient clintech to do a task, which is, they've been there for 10 years and they're 12 years older, that's an awkward position to be in.
Yeah. They have a hard time finding their voice.
Yes, a hard time finding voice, and also, there's a hard time in setting boundaries. That's difficult too. So I saw that the great results that this program was having at the institution I worked at, and I saw the experiences that I had over the course of COVID with other places in the country that either are much smaller than where I work, not as forward thinking, not as not as able to dedicate resources into that. And I saw a need to try and spread this information out, these skills out as much as I can. So I developed what I call it the Unstoppable RN program. And we talk about all those soft skills. We talk about time management. How do you treat time as a resource and a currency instead of just a circling hand on a clock? How do you prioritize your patients, and how do you set boundaries in your own practice that allows you to make those decisions and stick with them in the face of other people's competing priorities? We talk about delegation, how to set not just ask somebody to do something or expect that somebody's going to do something because it's going to be their job, but how do you use transformational leadership techniques to create a teamwork environment where your goals and my goals become our goals and everybody's working, together to the same end? We talk about communication, how to communicate effectively when you have a problem, how to communicate effectively at shift handoff, how to take and receive a good handoff report. We talk about, just values, establishing your values in your practice and the difference between your job and your practice as a nurse. How do you decide what kind of nurse you're going to be instead of flip-flopping around to the nurse that each individual person expects you to be, because you can't survive doing that.
Right. Yeah. So is it like a tangible thing? Is it a seminar?
Yes, we do. I have been approved for continuing education credits. It's a 2-day seminar. So for nursing students, we give the seminar in school. Obviously, they're not licensed yet, so we can't issue the CMEs. But for novice nurses who are in the field who want to learn these skills, we can issue CMEs for those.
Okay, how would they get? I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, how would somebody, if they want to, I want to do this.
I want to use this program. How do they get it? How do they get the Unstoppable RN?
So at the moment, we are offering seminars out. We've done some at some nursing schools and held a couple for nurses who are interested, just locally in the area that I'm in, a little bit outside of the area. We are actually launching our inaugural effort for a cruise experience. And are you guys familiar with Laura Gasparis?
No.
She's another native New Yorker. She's very much.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if she's crossed the Charles. She is very big on nursing education. She goes all over the country doing CEN, CCRN reviews. And in talking to her, she was saying to really widen the audience that this is available to, well, why not try making it a experiential event where
they would love that. You kidding me? Young nurses would love it.
Well, it's funny, being when I was a firefighter, they had the annual firefighter nurses cruise every year.
Oh, where was that when I was 22?
Yeah. My problem was I didn't know what you sign up as.
So when Scissors and Scrubs going on this cruise? You need a night out with Scissors and Scrubs on there?
Absolutely. So, we're doing it in November. We're leaving out of Miami, November 13th through 18th. It's a 5-day cruise. We're teaching our seminar on the 2 at sea days. So everybody has the opportunity to enjoy all the amenities on the ship, all the port stops and excursions and whatnot. But, we wanted to make a experience where nurses who are graduating can celebrate their graduation. They can celebrate the fact they got past their NCLEX, that they can, get together with their friends and they might be starting to go their separate ways. And novice nurses who've been working in the field can take that break that they need from running themselves ragged. They can blow off some steam, have a good time with fellow nurses, speak with experienced nurses. We're going to have nurses from a bunch of different specialties, having some ad hoc and casual pocket sessions on the boat, just discussing their experiences in their nursing careers and how they ended up in the specialties that they ended up in, and come back to work relaxed, refreshed, but also better with a new skill set and, equipped to attack that chaos that
Yeah.
nursing is these days, to really get in there, apply a repeatable process to that chaos, and manage what they can
Mhm.
in order to make themselves more efficient, reduce stress, reduce burnout.
So where would they go to sign up for the cruise?
Our site is iconeducationservices.org.
Mhm.
Okay.
We also have unstoppablern@gmail.com if anybody has any questions as well. We are on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Mhm.
If you guys wouldn't mind putting that in your show notes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're very excited about it. We've got some great
Sounds like
signups.
it's
Some
going to be
nurses.
awesome.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a very good time. I think it's going to be a double whammy of an experience. I think it's going to be have a good time on the cruise and also come back a stronger, better nurse and stronger in your practice.
Where are the ports of call?
Ports of call are Ocho Rios, Jamaica,
Oh,
and Grand Cayman.
oh, nice.
Yes, I have to
Nice.
bring my sunscreen.
Yes.
Oh, any scuba divers, they can join up too.
Sure, scuba divers can go. Beachgoers, golfers,
Yeah.
partiers.
It sounds like a great program. It's awesome because nurses do need a place to go. It's easier to talk to other nurses because they get it. They
It
need a place to
is.
vent.
And one of the things I've felt is that nursing is a very large table, and there's a lot of seats at it.
Mhm.
And because you may be having a rough time, a stressful time in the beginning, it's worth to stick around. It's worth to strengthen yourself. It's worth it to become more comfortable, stronger. Take those tools that you would ordinarily be getting from those experienced nurses.
Right.
When you're saying, how do I manage 4 patients? You would be looking at a 15, 20-year nurse and seeing how that they did
Right.
it.
Right.
This job is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So, I
And we
am
have to get
excited.
out of the mindset too of some of the older nurses eating their young,
Yes.
getting angry. They're fried, so they don't feel like teaching. I hear often, I just don't feel like teaching right now. I don't want to do that right now. Well, it's not a choice sometimes.
No,
But the opportunity is there.
Everybody also is not necessarily equipped to be a teacher, and that's
True.
okay.
Very true.
That
Very
is
true.
very okay. I've known people who are like, I just go in, I do what I do, and I don't really have a great way of explaining it or
Mhm.
showing
Mhm.
somebody else how to do it. And to come in and at 6 months and say, oh, guess what, you got a student today.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily get that prep time. Again, I'm lucky. I work for a great organization. They have preceptor training that nurses go through before they take on the
Yeah.
preceptor role. But I know a lot of places in the country aren't like that.
A lot of places are not like that.
Mhm.
So
But
it's
nursing,
hard.
there are so many opportunities and I've had such great opportunities. I've had such great experiences in nursing that I would like to figure out a way to pay back the people who mentored me, both in the fire department and in nursing,
Mhm.
to help new nurses coming out not burn out, not leave the bedside, figure out what their goals, values are, where they want to be at 5, 10 years, and take actionable steps to do that. And a lot of times those actionable steps right now are just getting through that first year.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, medicine's getting harder and harder.
Medicine
And
is
we need
getting
to prepare
harder.
these
There's
people for it.
increasing demands. We do live in a time of societal incivility.
Mhm.
There's violence and incivility problems in hospitals. Luckily, I think that the kind of, you're talking about the nurses eating their young. I think that has really diminished in because of awareness to it, and people being more cognizant of how they act and act towards their coworkers, and how they act towards their newer novice coworkers. So I think that's a very positive step. But I mean, every hospital now, or at least I hope every hospital, has to have some kind of sign up that says, we do not tolerate racist, sexist, aggressive
Yeah.
behavior towards our
Mhm.
staff, and that's an unfortunate thing.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, we've been in medicine both. I've been in since 1994. You were much
98.
98,
Right.
and what a drastic change from how we were treated in 94 and 98 to how it is now, for the better. Drastically different. Drastically different. So, any final words you'd like to add as we wrap it up about your cruise, about the program?
I would invite anybody who's interested to reach out, unstoppablern@gmail.com. I'm happy to discuss anybody's situation, any challenges people are facing. In particular, I would love to know that I had the impact on new nurses' lives that my preceptors had on me. I
Yeah.
would love to find out, in 10 years, find out somebody who said, you know what, I was thinking about walking out the door and you helped me out. And now I am on the helicopter. I'm in the
Yes.
OR. I'm an educator. I'm
Right. I'm
what
thriving
have
in my
you.
nursing
I'm
career.
thriving in I'm thriving
Yeah.
in my nursing career, and I would have walked away.
Yeah.
That's really what I would like to do. It's because nursing is that huge table. It's very, think about this. You have a degree program where 3 people who graduate on the same day with the exact same degree can come back to their 20th year reunion. One of them works on a helicopter, one of them is in
Yeah.
management, and another one is a school nurse, and they are all happy because they're all exactly where they want to be. There's no
And
other
it's
career
just
field.
a field too that if you get burned out on the helicopter, you can go work in a school. You get burned out in school, you can go work. There's so many different things in nursing you can do as a mother, as a father, as whatever. The hours, all the young girls coming up, I hear some nurses saying, I would never go into nursing, and I never discourage a nurse. You want to go into nursing, I think it's a great career. It's great pay. You can work 3 12s, you can work 4 10s, you can work weekends, you can work whenever you want.
Mhm.
And I just would never discourage somebody because it's
No,
too many
no.
opportunities.
And the thing I've always told people, especially in the fire department, was nursing is the best thing that ever happened to me. But the first thing you have to do is get whatever preconceptions you have about the career field out of your mind.
Mhm.
Walk in there with an open mind and see where it takes you and where you want to go.
Yes, exactly. You can make it whatever you want it to be. 100%.
No, it's like an orchard, and it's up to you how much fruit you want to carry out.
Yeah, I like your little analogies.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm a king of the one-liners.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. We appreciate it. Hopefully some of our listeners will get something out of it and take your cruise.
I hope so.
Uh-huh.
It was like I said, I'm always available if anybody has any questions, concerns, issues about their own situation, and they want to reach out to me. I'm always happy to talk about it. Our website is iconeducationservices.org, and we'll link to the socials in your show notes.
Excellent. And we'll be looking for you to send some stories in from your firefighter days.
Absolutely. You cannot buy tickets for a show better than a night tour in the New York City Fire Department.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
Like, subscribe, rate, and review the Scissors and Scrubs podcast on whatever podcast app you listen to us on. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Scissors and Scrubs. And email us any of your stories or thoughts to scissorsandscrubs@gmail.com.